Welcome to my online class, the Margin for Error Quilt. I am so glad that you've decided to join me on this quilt journey. I had lots of fun creating my quilt, and I'm excited to see all the color combinations and the different creative ideas that you can make in your own quilts. I want to introduce you to the quilt and talk about several things that we'll be doing during the class. First of all, I want to tell you about a couple of the supplies that you're going to need to create the quilt. The first one is the Margin for Error Quilt magazine. You're going to need this magazine because it has the basic instructions for making the quilt. It also has some photographs and illustrations to help you. The photograph of the quilt that's in here is not mine. It's the one by Jenny Haskins and Marty Mitchell. Mine is done a little bit differently, which you will get instructions for. But this magazine has the basic instructions. You will also receive written instructions every month showing you step by step exactly how to complete that section of the quilt that we're doing for that month. But you still need to have this magazine. This magazine is out of print, but I do have copies available, so if you need one, please email me. The second thing that you're going to need is the Marty Mitchell Dresden plate templates. These are clear acrylic templates, and they are used to make the Dresden plate block and the embroidered fan block, so you will have to have that. The other thing that you're going to need to have is the Spring Flowers Embroidery CD by Jenny Haskins. This CD is a multi-formatted CD, so it doesn't matter the brand of machine you have, you can still use it. This CD you can use, and it has all the embroidery designs on it that you need to complete the quilt. So you'll need to have this embroidery CD. Of course, there are many other supplies that you're going to need, and you can download a complete supply list on my website telling you everything you'll need to complete the quilt. The other thing I want to talk about as far as supplies is fabrics. Choosing your fabrics can kind of be overwhelming, especially when you're just getting started on a new project. But I want to give you some ideas to make it a little easier. First of all, you can use 7 to 11 different fabrics in this quilt. I would really recommend that you stay with 7 to 9 different fabrics. The more fabrics you get, the more complicated it becomes. So if at all possible, stay within the range of 7 to 9 different fabrics. You can use the fabrics in a couple different places so you don't have to have a total of 11. And this is very easy to do, and you don't see that there's the same fabric over and over. Let me give you an example. In this purple pansy fabric in my sashing is not only used for my vertical sashing here, it's also used for my embroidered fan block for the fans in the corners, and it's also used for my fan pieces in the Dresden plate and in the circle piece. Not only is it used there, but it's also used in the binding. So I've taken 3 to 4 different fabrics and just used one fabric, which made it a lot simpler than picking my fabrics. Another tip for picking your fabrics is to start with a piece that you like for the border. I would recommend that you use a little bit larger of a floral piece. It doesn't have to be a floral, it could be a geometric design, it could be a little smaller floral piece. But stick with something that is not real tiny, because you're going to use, this is an 8-inch border finish, and so you have a little bit of room here. Stick with a piece of fabric that has several colors in it that you can bring into the quilt. Once you have your border fabric chosen, then you can easily take colors out of that and use that for your horizontal sashing pieces, vertical sashing pieces, and your other pieces in your embroidered and Dresden plate blocks. Start with your border fabric and choose several fabrics after that to use for the rest of your quilt. The other thing you're going to want to do is purchase all your fabrics at the same time for a couple of different reasons. You want to make sure you have enough to complete the quilt, is the first reason. The second reason is if you need some more fabric a couple months down the road, that fabric may not be available anymore, or it may be off of a different bolt. Sometimes different bolts will be a little different dye lot in the colors of fabric. So purchase all your fabrics at the same time, and you'll be sure to have enough for your quilt. And everything will fit and coordinate together very well. That's kind of an overview of the fabrics. On my website also you can download and print the complete list of fabrics that you need and what they're all used for. I'll talk about that in a little bit also. But first of all, let's take a little bit closer look at the blocks. The first block that we'll be stitching is the embroidered fan block right here. And we're going to take just a couple blocks a month and work on it that way. So let's zoom into this block a little bit so we can see it a little closer. This block has an embroidery design in the center here, and then it has fussy cut fan pieces in all four corners. Now let me give you a definition of fussy cutting if you haven't ever done fussy cutting before. Fussy cutting is cutting the fabric in a way that a certain part of the fabric is displayed in the piece that you're cutting. For instance, in this particular piece, we wanted the pansy to be the focal point of this fabric. I'm going to zoom in a little more so you can see it a little closer. You can see in this piece right here that the pansy is in the center of the fan, and you can clearly see it in each piece. This makes for a neat pattern in the corner of your block, and that's what fussy cutting is. Okay, let's zoom back out. So, the four fan pieces will be fussy cut and applied to each corner of the block. Then decorative stitches are put on top for that block. Now, there are 8 blocks of this particular one. Once you have one done, the other 7 aren't too difficult to do. The next block that we're going to talk about is the Dresden plate block.